why is the metaverse and Web3 so important for brands to invest in?
Inside of the idea that we're not in the metaverse today, but it's where we're heading, and it's the future 3D version of the internet and computing, we see that there'll be huge shifts on the order, and even greater than the shifts as we moved from the first era of the internet to some call Web 2, some call social mobile cloud, and that we'll have tremendous shifts in terms of content creation, content distribution, the relationship between communities and fans and audiences, and the role of IP across all of that. And so for us, for anyone who doesn't know CAA, we're a leading talent agency, an entertainment and sports agency, and represent huge talent across, in front of and behind the camera, and film and TV and sports and music and digital and gaming and books and podcasts and many brands as well. And so for us, we see this incredibly important that talent and our brands are drivers of culture and help shift culture and help drive how the audiences connect to stories and innovation. And so for us, we're very focused on where those shifts are going and maximizing those opportunities for our talent, for our clients.
Okay. Jeannie, now you look after the whole of retail marketing.
That's right.
So all the consumer touch points. So
Absolutely.
How do you see it?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I agree, the definition earlier was incredible. I think the build I would have on it is we really see that it's this blurred, almost line between virtual and real world activities. So it's taking people from where they are in their phone, sort of heads down, and getting them into this really immersive experience. So, but the interoperability, the scale, the agency is absolutely necessary to sort of realize the metaverse. It's very important to us as a company for several reasons. The first one is we are uniquely positioned to power it all. So we may not create all of the services and things like that, but at its core, AT&T is a connectivity company, you know, America's best broadband company.
To get you into hot water, if you still had time more.
No.
It would be more
He's
interesting.
trying to get me in trouble all morning, for those of you that haven't been around us.
But you look at it more as a facilitator.
Yeah, we really are kind of the backbone and the rocket fuel to the innovation and all that really will be with the metaverse.
Okay. Now, Eric, we started 4 years ago. We now have 9,000 people in 32 countries. You're in the vanguard of this, the advanced tech, crypto, NFTs, the metaverse. How do you see it from the agency point of view?
I see, we play a consultative role, I think, primarily, in that we work with virtually all the largest brands out there, and the level of familiarity or knowledge when it comes to Web3 and metaverse, crypto, all of it is very broad, very interesting, like their sophistication. So I find my role and the role of the team I work with to be consultative, and like if they're a company that's very knowledgeable, like we can get up to speed with them and sort of build their strategy, build their sort of platforms, build a community. But then for those that are a bit more timid or a bit behind in terms of like adoption or just knowledge, it's just much more of a guide into the space. And so how do you go in without losing your shirt, go in knowledgeably and make smart moves?
Okay. I mean, one of the things we've seen is clients want to engage with us. They sort of want an agency of record in innovation. I mean, it's not huge in terms of revenues yet, but what we are seeing is people looking to explore. It's not just the metaverse, it's NFTs, it's crypto, it's everything.
Kind of all, and I think because the previous speaker was, there's a lot of terms that get thrown in. There's a lot of vernacular, and so you kind of have to go in and kind of educate them. There's a lot of heavy overlap.
Okay. Okay. So what's brand engagement going to look like in Web3, and what hurdles do brands face?
So for us, we think about it in terms of, there's 4 primary buckets that we're working on today. So one is our core clients and helping them get metaverse ready. So I see my role at CAA overall is helping the agency and our clients get metaverse ready. So the four buckets are, one, helping our core clients make their way into the space and find the best access. So as an example, just last week, Anthony Hopkins dropped his first NFT series, Sir Anthony Hopkins actually, and he's 84 years old. He may not be the first person you would think of that would have a wildly successful NFT program, but he worked together with Orange Comet and created this beautiful artistry showing his different moments throughout his career. It sold out in 7 minutes, basically broke OpenSea, they went down, had to come back up. And so,
I love it when you break something.
yeah, it's great when you break something, right?
It's great.
You never have if we don't break something on this
Something's
panel,
a problematic.
then our panel's not a success, 100%. Maybe you've been getting in trouble, maybe something
Yeah.
else is great. So that's a really interesting example where he worked together with the community over the last 6 to 9 months. He has some natural touch points into this community as being an artist. He was able to really connect with the community, create something of interest, and do phenomenally well. And use an interesting business model where he is both selling the NFTs, but then he's also making, the smart contract has him making royalties on the secondary market, and he's done tremendously well there as well. That's a really interesting model. It may not be the first person or the first thing that people would think of, but has had huge success. So one is the core clients. 2 is we're working with clients that have had huge success in these areas, whether it's in VR, whether it's digital artists who've had huge success in NFTs. And so we've worked with clients like Jenkins the Ballet, who came up through with Bored Ape Yacht Club, and have been able to then build their business, again, because of the smart contracts where anyone who owns a Bored Ape then is able to commercialize it. So they were able to build a business out, do a podcast deal, do a book deal, to create virtual worlds, and connect it in with Hollywood writers and Hollywood screenwriters. And so again, because of the different economic structures with NFTs, they were able to do that. We worked with your team on Post Malone VR concert and in other areas. And then the third bucket is Connect Ventures, which makes investments in the space. And then the fourth and biggest one is, what does the agency of the future look like?
Right.
And as all of these shifts happen, what are completely new lines of business that we are looking at and thinking about and taking action in? And so, Alba mentioned AI. AI is a huge area of interest for us as we think about the future.
What should brands be focused on today to help build and shape authentic engagement in the metaverse?
I do want to talk about that,
Sure.
but I actually want to go back to something, Eric, that you were saying, because I believe you guys play a really critical role in the services that you're providing right now. So when we talk about, hey, what does this mean to brands? Where's the education level? What do people understand? Your expertise, the things that you guys are providing to people, is critical, because you can't miss out on this opportunity. And here's why. First of all, in terms of revenue opportunity, it's huge. And we've probably all seen the numbers, but as a reminder, in the next 10 years, you're talking about over $1 trillion. And that is conservative. When you take a look at where that comes from, that's near-term opportunities, that's education, advertising, things that we believe you can put your fingers around right now.
That's McKinsey-esque.
That's right. That's right.
I believe. I'm an alum.
And maybe there's a little bit of fantasy in there as
You're
well.
alum, did you say?
I'm a McKinsey alum, yes.
Yes.
When you take that figure of $1 trillion,
Yeah.
sort of break it down to the areas, we were talking before.
Yeah.
I mean, the area that has always amazed me is the medical area.
Yes.
And we were talking about training.
Yeah.
But not the areas that immediately, e-commerce comes to mind,
Right.
sports, entertainment comes
Yes.
to mind, the NBC stuff we do and all that stuff. But do you want to just break down that $1 trillion to where you see it is?
Well, so I see it in all of those categories. So I see, advertising, entertainment, right up front, right? I think that is the bulk and it's the most immediate. But absolutely, training, healthcare, and a stat on training that I find just fascinating is when people sit in rooms, even we're trying to be very effective for you today. We hope you take great things away, but you're probably going to retain 5 to 10%. When people get into immersed worlds and then they start to train this way, they're actually retaining things at about 70%. It's material. It's very, very different. And again, so there's a huge revenue opportunity, so we've got to go get after that. But there's also an appetite. for it. People want to, they want to immerse. They're already buying digital goods. They want to live part of their life in the metaverse. Also McKinsey, right? 60% or 66%. It's a high percentage of people who want it. So I just wanted to make a point about you guys are offering some services that I think are really important and that brands should be taking advantage of, companies should take advantage of. And then hurdles, because you were talking about sort of what the engagement is, but there's one thing that really needs addressed here, and it's the digital divide. And lots of people are putting money and time and attention, but if we're not equipping people with real connectivity, whether it's through 5G and fiber, through a company like AT&T, whether it's devices, but also digital skills. Because you've got to go educate people because they don't have all the skills. So truly the digital divide is something we've got to tackle.
Okay, well just to that, Eric, given what we just talked about, given the nuances and intricacies of Web3, what talent and skills do you think, looking at it from our point of view, looking at the clients, and we can be so bold, what sort of skills do you think are needed?
It's a really good question. I think right now there's a sort of evolution of what has happened before in terms of like user engagement, user patterns, and so having a really good sense of the history of sort of technology, at least in the last 10 years, and a strategic peer view on where it can go. Because there's a lot of hype right now, and you can make great use of the hype as a brand, but then you want to be there for the long haul. You want to be there in 3-5 years as the sort of hype goes down. And right now we're able to, through a strategic lens, help sort of build the plumbing, build the foundations for that. So what will become the metaverse that Alvin sort of eloquently discussed earlier. So right now it's that sort of strategic long view based on.
Okay.
You know who I'm looking for as a professional marketer? I'm looking for a data geek that knows how to color outside the lines.
Yeah.
And they have a heart for customers. Like, it's truly, like, the profile of the person is a great blend.
Given the fact we're either in a recession or going into a recession, given that pressure, do you think that the metaverse experimentation will suffer as we get into 23 and 24? I mean, how much play in the budgets will there be?
Yeah.
I mean, I was in Asia last week and was struck by the number of clients that said to me, when I said my favorite question, what keeps you awake at night?
Right.
They said that the finance department, because it's their planning season, they're putting pressure on their budgets for next year and saying no increases and cut your costs and all that. Do you think it's going to be affected or not?
I actually think it's going to drive innovation within the company. I think we know that we need to get in. And so, should we be making huge, insane bets? I don't always think that's wise. I think you need to take a measured approach to testing at small scale, but then really scaling up fast. So lean forward, fail fast, fail forward, as people say. But I think because your resource could be somewhat limited, you're going to get really innovative around who you partner with, what you go test. And the greatest advice that I could give is be super clear about what you think your long-term strategic position is in the metaverse. Why are you doing it? How might you measure it? But by the way, that's like, you've got to go fillet the elephant. You got to start small, but keep your eye on the longer-term prize. So I don't think it will suffer. I think it's going to cause innovation.
Okay.
There's two aspects of this. So there's companies for whom may not see this as their core business today. And I think for those companies, I think it's incredibly important to keep their eye on today's business, but also longer term strategic investments, and continue to experiment and test and learn and innovate in this area so that they're not, they don't become the blockbuster of this era, right? That's one. The other part is the companies for whom this is their core business. And so, we get a lot of questions about crypto winter and the downturn, and is this over? Is VR dead? Is like everyone's favorite. It's a favorite clickbait all the time, right? And in this one, I think a lot about history and what we can learn. And that we're sitting here in Silicon Valley. if there were a lot of headlines after the original .com crash, .com, .bomb, like the fun is over. If you'd taken those actions and said, all right, we give up, that you probably would have missed out on a lot, like a very important business and important investments and important ways to connect with audiences and community. Many of the key or the key companies that what we point to as the pinnacles of the social mobile cloud era, all were founded after that first crash. Right? The vast majority, with the exception of certainly of Amazon and eBay, but if you look to the rest, they were all founded by people who, despite of the crash, kept working, kept focused, heads down, building, and created amazing products and amazing connections with their audiences. And so I think that's the model, and so that's where we should be focused and looking.
What's on the road ahead for brands over the next 2 to 3 years, and as we go through this difficult period up until the presidential election in 24? And what's the best single move a brand can make right now? Here's your chance. We've got some clients in the room, I'm told. So we have an opportunity maybe to turn some.
Best single move is to prepare by creating 3D assets for across your brand.
So and that would be the move over the next 2 to 3 years. Okay.
I think for the next 2 to 3 years, what you'll see from us at AT&T is to continue to double down on our coverage. Again, we believe that we're the backbone and the rocket fuel for this innovation of the metaverse, and you're going to see us continue to expand our coverage and access into neighborhoods.
Okay.
Evolve, stay open to what's coming. Listen to your customer base. This is coming. The metaverse is coming. It's undeniable.
Okay.
So staying open to it.
So I don't want to put cold water on it, but just to focus. So last year our revenues were about 900 million. This year they'll cross $1 billion to about $1.2 billion. Of that $1.2 billion, of the delta of the 300 million, I reckon metaverse revenues are about 30 to 40 million this year. So it's of the delta, it's 10% to round, but of the overall amount, it's only 3 or 4%. So we are in the foothills of this. The other thing I would say is going to be much more competitive. I mean, Meta has clearly taken the lead, but it's going to be very different. I mean, although they're getting competition now from TikTok, in particular, Apple through the IDFA changes. This is going to be a much more, there are many more entrants to this area. And for example, Microsoft's move with Activision Blizzard, not finalized yet, but probably coming. What Apple is going to do in the area. I mean, this is going to be a highly competitive trillion or whatever it happens to be. Thank you, panel.
Thank you.
Thank you, guests.
Yes.
Thank you very much.